Morning everyone, thank you so much for joining me on this really special Bake Along Live in partnership with Homepride Flour and me, She Who Bakes, to celebrate International Cake Day. So Homepride have asked me to do a really special live. I don't do a lot of these anymore, so I'm really excited to be doing this for you guys. So what we're going to be making today is one of my favourites, a Madeira Cake. Now if you follow me or don't follow me, I love Madeira cake. I kind of use it for pretty much everything. So that's what we're going to be doing today. A little bit of housekeeping. My wonderful husband Tim is on the camera. So Tim, there he is. So I can't see any questions or comments or anything that you guys are putting up. But when I've got time in between, I'm going to be asking Tim to field any questions to me. So if you're there and if you're watching, say hello, put a little comment on, put a little post to say that you're watching, and then if you've got any questions about Madeira cakes or baking in general or anything, then just pop it in the comments, and like I say, as I'm going through it, I will ask Tim to field me some questions, because me holding the camera and trying to do this, it will get covered in chocolate, so it's not the best idea. So Tim will ask me questions, and any that I've missed, I will have a look through the comments later this afternoon and answer them as best I can. And because obviously we can't do a 2-hour long live, because I'll run out of things to say and you will get very bored, I'm going to be making up the cake, popping it in the tin, and then putting it in the oven to bake. But I do have a classic blue Peter. Here's one I made earlier that we will deal with a little bit later on, and then I will post a picture later this afternoon of the cake that we baked together on my She Who Bakes Facebook page. So if you're watching, give me a little hello, give me a wave, let me know that you're there, or that I'm just talking to myself in my kitchen on a Saturday morning. And if you are baking along with me as well, please let me know that too. Obviously just watching it on your sofa is perfectly chill and cool, and I'm here for it. But if you are baking along with me, because Homepride did post the ingredients, then also let me know that as well. So what we're going to do first is we're going to start by lining the tin. So Tim, is there anyone there?
yeah, we got a few people saying hello.
Amazing.
Naomi, Angie, Jacqueline, Kelly, they've all said morning to you.
Morning guys. So this is what we're going to, just so I know that I'm not talking, because what will happen is I will talk quite quickly, so I will try and slow everything down, and if there are any questions, then please do just let me know. But I'm really excited to be working with Homepride. They are such a great company and a great brand that I really, really like. I only work with companies that I use in my own kitchen, and I'll only go into partnerships with companies that I really, really believe in, and Homepride is one of them. So I've got my little Fred mascot here. Can you see him?
There he is.
I've got my little Fred. It's actually a pie funnel, but I quite like just having him in my kitchen for good luck. So yeah, so really looking forward to this. So enough talking, Britt, I know, let's get started. So what I'm going to be doing is using a 7-inch round tin, which looks like this. Now there's loads of different cake tins that you can buy on the market. There's shallow ones, there's different ones. These are the ones that I really, really like to use. They are, I can't ever say the word, so I don't know why I'm trying, but iodinized steel, is that right? I don't know what the word is. But they're really, really strong. They're 3 inches deep. You can also get them 4 inches deep. And because I'm quite strong, I lift weights and I do many things, and I can't make this tin budge in any way, whereas I have had slightly cheaper ones, slightly thinner ones that have bent just by accident, really. Clearly don't know my own strength. So these ones I really recommend, and this is what I'm going to be using today. I always like to line my tins. I know that a lot of people sometimes just use butter or flour or, you know, their own kind of cake release and stuff, and that is cool. Everything I'm going to show you today that I like doing is how I like to bake and how I find I get the best results. But you've got to do you, and if there are things that I do that don't resonate with you, awesome, just keep doing you, because baking is so personal and so experimental that you can take tips from people and take advice from people, but sometimes doing your own thing is maybe better. So please know whatever I'm saying today, it's not set in stone, it's not you have to do it this way, because I don't believe that's how baking needs to be done. I started baking when I was in a very, very bad place, for anyone who follows me and all knows my story. So I very much believe baking is personal and it's what makes you feel good. So take that as you will. So I'm going to be lining my tins. Now watch all the comments, I don't line my tins. That's cool, you do you, I'm not worried. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm using a 7-inch round tin, by the way. 7-inch round tins are it's my favourite size to do. I kind of find 8-inch cakes are a little bit big and 6-inch cakes are a little bit small, so proper Goldilocks. I like the 7-inch round tin. So I've got a pre-cut greaseproof paper circle. You can buy packs of these. Because 7-inch rounds are, like I say, my favourite size that I make, I buy these in a pack of about 100 from online. So you can get them. It just saves cutting out circles, to be honest, which is boring. So I have a pre-cut greaseproof paper circle, and then I've got a strip of greaseproof paper. Now I'm cheating a little bit because I've already measured this to make my life on camera a bit easier. But what I do is I will roll out a sheet of greaseproof, and I will check that it covers the circumference of the tin, like so, with a little bit of overlap. And once I've done that, I remove the tin and I roll it back up. There's a method, stay with me. So when I have it like this, as a roll, I'll then put it next to my tin, and I want it just a little bit higher than my cake tin, just to allow for any extra rise. So then I will cut it like so. So then that I know will fit my cake beautifully. So I've got a little bit of cake release in this pot here. You can make your own, you can buy your own, you can use whatever you like really. I prefer using cake release over something like melted butter and flour, because I find it doesn't leave a greasy residue around my cakes. And I'm using both, because I get this question a lot, why do I line and use cake release? I use the cake release to stick down the greaseproof paper. If you don't know what cake release is, it's kind of a mixture of fat and flour and other things. I would suggest to Google it, because I have 5,000 things to do. But cake release is something that I really, really like using. I should make my own. I don't. I buy it. So please don't worry if you buy yours. Not everything has to be completely handmade. I've got a really nice Homepride silicone brush here, like so. Now I prefer using a silicone brush over a, not fabric, I've lost the word completely, like fibre hair brush, because I find that the hairs come out, and because it's normally the same colour as cake mix, it can do you a mischief. So I like to use a silicone brush because they also get really clean as well. So I'm just wiping some cake release all the way around, like so. I have to be careful because metal on metal is really like, it's not a nice sound, so I'm trying to be really careful doing this. So there's my cake release. I'm going to take my greaseproof paper circle and pop that just in the bottom. Run my finger around to stick it down like so. And then my strip, I'm going to start, I tend to start opposite me. Can you see that from where you are?
You can move in a bit.
Yeah. And then by rubbing my hand around, and it lines lovely. And I'm going to just trim it because it only needs to overlap a little bit, like so. Take a bit more cake release onto that bit and put it down. And then any residual cake release I've got, I tend to just brush onto the paper. It doesn't necessarily need it, but it gets the excess off, and it's a nice way of using it up. If you have bits that just won't stick down, just put a little bit more cake release and then it sticks really nicely. So that is one lined cake tin. Now, someone asked me yesterday actually, how do you line square cake tins? And the answer is exactly the same way. You would, with the strip, but just push it into the corners, if that makes sense. So exactly the same way. I'm just going to get rid of these. Okay, so now the tin is lined. I hate lining tins. It's like my least favourite job to do. And if I've got loads of tins to line, I will line them all at once. So it's just done in advance. Right, so what we're going to do now is actually make the cake mix. So So I'm using a stand mixer for this. You can use a hand whisk, or if you're really hardcore, you can do it with just a spoon and a bowl. It's completely up to you. Again, I like to make my life as easy as possible, so I will use a stand mixer for this. So the ingredients, which were listed on the Homepride page, I will just go through with you again now. So we have 200 grams of caster sugar. I'm just using normal caster sugar for this, but feel free to experiment. You can use light brown sugar or golden caster sugar. It's also really good for chocolate cakes, but equally, whatever you've got in. I happen to have normal caster sugar in, so that is what I will be using. So that's going straight into the bowl. And then I also have 200 grams of baking spread. You can use baking spread, unsalted butter, anything that you normally like using as well. And if you want to make this dairy-free, just use dairy-free spread because it works just as well. So that's going in as well. That'll go in there. Now, I've got quite a lot of bowls out, which I know equals quite a lot of washing up, but this is how I like to bake. I like to have everything pre-weighed out, pre-measured before I even start doing anything. I get overwhelmed really easily, and I find that too much makes me a bit, I don't process it properly. Whereas if everything's nicely weighed out, it keeps me calm and it makes baking a nicer experience for me. So now I've got the fat and the sugar in the bowl, so I've got my baking spread and my caster sugar. I'm going to mix this up. Let me move this a bit forward. So this might be a little bit noisy. But I'm going to mix that together until it's fully incorporated. So I just want to check if you can still hear me over the mixer. Just let me know. Just put like a little yes, I can hear you, or
thumbs up.
A little thumbs up or something. That would be great because it's really loud for me, but I don't know how loud it is for you guys. So, hoping you can all still hear me.
We got thumbs up coming.
Oh,
yeah, thumbs up from people. Thank you, Christina. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Davina.
So while this is mixing, I'm just going to take the cling film off this because again I pre-weighed everything out earlier. So I've got 4 eggs. I always use the bins. I moved my bins so it wasn't just there. So I keep going to throw things on the floor. I've got 4 eggs. I always use medium free-range eggs. Always free-range eggs in my baking. I think the only time I ever haven't is when I was doing an experiment and I felt wrong for buying not free-range eggs. So I always use free-range eggs. And I like to use medium ones. Although I have made this recipe when I accidentally bought large and it still came out okay. So I think for something like this, it's not too detrimental to the bake if it's medium or large, but for other bakes it would be. So case by case basis. So now this is all mixed in, I'm just going to turn it right down and I'm going to just pour in the eggs. Now, another question that I get a lot is when you put the eggs in and it starts to separate, I don't know if you can see that from where you are, but the mix starts to separate, has it curdled? And the short answer is no. It doesn't do that quickly. It's just because there's too much fat for the sugar to absorb. So that's the reason why once you put the flour in, it's back to normal. So I've got 200 grams of Homepride self-raising flour. It's about to go in, and again, I do personally find it's the best flour, and I find that it really helps my bakes. So this is going in, and I'm just going to slowly pour that in. And let that mix. And then while that's mixing, I've also got 50 grams of cocoa powder to give it a nice chocolatey taste, and that's going in as well.
Trying to keep up with the action here. Hopefully the camera work is up to standard.
I'm just checking my chocolate's still melted because I melted this earlier. Yes, it is. And then I also have 100 grams of melted dark chocolate.
Oh, nice.
Which is very nice. And that's going to go in once all of the flour is mixed in and incorporated. So I'm just going to turn this up a little bit. It's a little bit noisy. Just to get in all the bits around the edges. Sorry if you can't hear me right now. Okay. And then I'm just going to pour in the dark chocolate, because I've done this before where I've poured this in whilst it's been mixing and it has just splattered me in the face. So I'm going to do it this way instead. So just pouring in.
Oh, it smells lovely already.
And I'm just doing it this high just because the beater is in the way. That's why I'm not trying to be fancy or do Fernley Whittingstall about it. I'm sure it's lovely. Okay, that'll do. And then just going to let that mix in. And then I've got my tin ready. And what I'm going to be doing is, as soon as this is done, I'm going to pop it in the tin and I'm going to run and put it in the oven so Tim can zoom in and show you some other funky things.
Nice.
And then, like I say, I will post a picture of the baked one, but we have one here, which I will bring out in a moment. So I always tend to give my cakes just a quick high-speed blast just before I put it in the tin, just to make sure everything is incorporated and it's got a lot of air in it. And I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to scrape down the beater.
I'll show people what it's looking like in the...
Oh yeah, I'll get it out in a minute. And then I have so much washing up for you, Tim.
Oh,
So, lovely chocolatey cake mix. Just checking there's no little pockets of flour and it's all mixed in, which it is, which I'm happy with. So that then goes into the tin. I want to get all of it in. So this is the recipe I use for a 7-inch round. However, if I want a super deep cake, I tend to go one mix up. So for a 7-inch round, which this is, if I want a super deep cake, I will do an 8-inch mix and put that in here. And then equally, if I want a deep 8-inch cake, I will do a 9-inch, etc. and going up from there. But because I'm happy with just a standard height cake for this, I will just be doing the mix that it needs. So scraping all that down. And then I'm just going to flatten the mix a little bit. All the way around. Like so. And then, one last thing I do with cake mixes, I just give it a little bit of a tap on the side just to completely flatten it. So I'm going to quickly run. So that's it in the tin there like so.
boom.
Now I'm going to bake this at 140 degrees Celsius, that is a fan assisted oven, for about 1 hour 20 minutes, 1 hour 30. And I'll explain the temperature in a minute because I know some people bake it a lot higher than that. So I'm just going to quickly, you can't see me, I'm like the wind.
She's gone.
I'm just going to quickly put this in the oven.
So now would be a good time for anyone to ask any questions or come in with anything that you can answer whilst not doing a lot. I'm going to just do a little pan around here.
And I'm back.
Oh, she's back already. Wow.
Didn't even know I was gone. It's only because this is my baking station and we haven't tidied that end of the kitchen.
Okay.
Otherwise I would take you with me to the oven, but alas. So I'm just going to grab a bit of kitchen roll. Okay, so what's 1 hour 20 from now? What's it now? It's 20 past 11. So 20 past 12, so 12:40. Which Tim whispered because he knows my maths is terrible. So always just quickly clean down.
We've got one question come in.
Go on.
Naomi, can I have a piece of cake on Monday?
Amazing. So my friend Naomi, who's coming over for brunch, maybe if there's any left, but I do live with Tim.
Yeah, so I think you might be a bit late on that one, Naomi.
Also, check out my lovely Emma Bridgewater
Nice.
Homepride mug. Yes.
Julie Bailey, can you put the recipe up, please?
The recipe is up. It is on my website, which is shewhobakes.co.uk. It is up there as a classic Madeira birthday cake. It's on the blog section of my website, so if you're struggling to find it, then if you just Google She Who Bakes Madeira, it should come up, or She Who Bakes, classic Madeira or birthday cake or something. It should be the top result. So it is on there as well, with all of the method and also the variations on how to make it vanilla and how to make it lemon.
Oh, lemon. I like lemon.
So that is that. So what I'm going to do now is, here's one I made earlier. Do you know what? I always wanted a Blue Peter badge, but I never set anything in. It was just one of those things that, like, I want one, but I'm not going to do anything to actually get it.
Well, then you don't deserve
Then
one.
I don't get it. Then I don't get one.
We've got one question.
Yes.
Nancy Foster said, how do you store all of the cake decorating things?
Do you mean tools, or do you mean toppers that I've already made? Let me know what you mean, if you mean my tools or what have you. Let me know that again. Just quickly, because I said I'll talk about the temperatures. I like to bake at a low temperature for a longer time, because I find that gives me a nice, flat, even bake. Because what happens is, if your oven is too hot and you're trying to like speed bake, your cake will bake on the outside quicker than the inside, and that's what causes little volcano tops on cupcakes and too much rise on normal cakes. So whereas I find if you bring the temperature right down and it just kind of rises nice and evenly. And I do that with a fan assisted. I don't have a gas oven, and I've never baked in a gas oven, so I'm not the best person to ask about that, but I think it's gas mark 2, but you would have to check on a conversion chart for that. The same with a conventional non-fan oven as well. But that's what I like to bake as.
So Nancy just said, yes, she meant the tools.
Tools, this whole station, all these drawers, all of these cupboards, this is all filled with cake stuff. I have, like, don't pan over because it is a mess. I have like a full rainbow set of drawers that's full of it. I have another massive cupboard that's from IKEA that's in the spare room as well. So the short answer is wherever you can find space. I've got a toolbox. Actually, you can pan over to my desk is sort of tidy. I have a toolbox there on the shelf, which has got all of my most used tools in, but everything else goes in a drawer, basically. So wherever you can find space. But when I first started baking, I had a little one-bedroom flat with a tiny kitchen, and that was a struggle. I actually cleared out a big unit in the living room, and all of my cake stuff went in there because I simply had no space. I've got rid of a lot over the years, because you find, I mean, I've been doing this now. I started baking 9 years ago, which is ridiculous. It makes me feel really old. So I've accumulated a lot of stuff. So I get rid of stuff periodically that I just don't use. You know, the sort of things that when you're at a cake show and you're like, that looks amazing, I'll have that. And then you realise I'm never going to use it. So I've had that many times. So I put a lot of stuff on eBay every now and then.
One more question.
Go on.
Julie Bailey, do you always bake in one tin, as I tend to bake in 2?
Yeah.
And a follow-up question, supplementary question. If doing a deeper cake, do you use a nail in the tin?
Okay, as you see, I did not put a nail in that tin before I went in, if you have been watching from the start. So no, I don't put nails in, because I only put edible things in my cakes. But I always bake in a deep cake. So as you can see, I have a deep tin. I don't like doing it in separate tins. Again, this is all very personal. I know people that always bake in separate tins and always get great results, and that's cool, but this is how I like to do it. And again, if you bake at a lower temperature for a longer time, it produces a nice even bake for even the deepest of cakes. I do this method all the way up to the biggest tin that will fit in my oven, which is I think a 16-inch round. I haven't done one of those in a very long time, but I did do a 14-inch round not that long ago. And this is how I always do it. Just bake it for a really long time at a low temperature. It doesn't dry out, it doesn't burn, it doesn't do any of the things that you might be scared it's going to do. It simply doesn't. And this way I find it better, because I know this cake is lovely. I know it's all completely baked the same way. Whereas if you have individual cakes, they all do what they want and they bake in their own way. So I'm going to unwrap this now to show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to split it the way I normally do, and I've got some chocolate ganache that we're going to fill it with, and I've got some sprinkles that we're going to decorate it with, because sometimes decoration just needs to be simple, and that's what I'm doing today.
Whilst you're doing that then,
yes.
Another question in. Kieran Charnock, apologies if I've said that name wrong. Hi Britt, most recipes I've seen for chocolate cake use cocoa and not melted chocolate. What's the difference, please?
This is why I do it. Literally, that's all I've got. You should know, I am not a professional baker. I'm a professional baker in the sense that it's my job, but I didn't go to fancy cake school. I didn't get a degree in baking. I don't have any of that. So The actual science behind it, I only know bits that I've researched, and to be honest, if I wanted to go into science and research and development, I would have done that with a different subject, so I find all that quite boring. I just like experimenting and seeing what I get at the end of it. And the way I've always made it is with melted chocolate and cocoa powder. There was cocoa powder in there as well. I don't know if you missed me making it, but there was also 50 grams of cocoa powder. But I find that it makes for a nice silky mix, and I like the tasty cake that comes out of it at the end. So most of the stuff that I do, if I'm doing it different to the way other people are doing it, it's just because it's the way I've found it best, personally. And again, that's what I think baking is, finding your own way to do it.
Cool.
So I always, okay, so just quickly, I'm going back and forth and I do apologise. When my cake is baked, I almost immediately, when it comes out of the oven, as soon as I know it's done, I will turn it upside down onto some grease-proof paper. I don't like using cooling racks because I don't like the dents that it makes in the cake. I find that just straight upside down, and Tim will vouch for me, I don't show it any love, it just gets slammed out of the tin onto greaseproof paper, and what that does is that will flatten any dome that may have occurred, and again, I just like the results I get from it, and that's how I've always done it. So this has been left on some greaseproof paper, flattened to cool yesterday when I made it, and then I double wrapped it in cling film to help keep it fresh to use it today. Now anything that's based on a Madeira cake lasts ages. So I don't make commission cakes anymore, like birthday cakes or wedding cakes, but when I used to, I would bake on a Monday or a Tuesday for a Saturday or Sunday delivery, because then that gave me enough time to bake the cake, let it cool, split fill, ice it, decorate it, do everything I needed to do, and the cake would still last for a further week after that, as long as it was wrapped well. If I just cut a big slice out of this and left it, it would dry out pretty quickly. But that's why I don't like doing naked cakes, but that's a different story. So that's just how I do it. So I will bake well in advance from when I need it. I also freeze my cakes. Some people think that makes me a baking heathen, but I freeze my cakes all the time. You can freeze them for up to 3 months, and they taste just as good, if not better, and nobody knows that they're frozen, in my opinion. So I have my chocolate cake here that I've just unwrapped, and it's really nice and sturdy. You can't really pick up a Victoria sponge on the side like that. Again, I'm going to the bin that's not there. So if I just flip it back, so if you want to come in, Tim.
Oh, well.
So as you can see, it's nice and flat where I've left it to cool upside down, and there is a crack running through it. Now the reason I mention that is vanilla cakes don't tend to do this so much, vanilla Madeira cakes or lemon Madeira cakes, but chocolate ones always do. Why? I don't know. I'm sure someone much more intelligent than me can probably tell me what the science behind it is, but they always do, and I get people message me saying, I've just made your chocolate Madeira and there's a big crack through it, what have I done wrong? Absolutely nothing. So there you go, there is that. So, and again, as you can see, it's nice and flat, like so. So it's up to you really whether you want to level it or not when it's this flat, and that is the benefit that you have. So what I tend to do is flip it upside down, and I tend to have a good look at it from the side. That's perfectly flat.
I'm coming
if
down
I was, you're coming down.
Yes, I'm coming down to
eyeball.
there we go, yeah.
That's perfectly flat. So if I was to put a spirit level on that, it would, you know, do what spirit levels do, which again, I'm not that intelligent with them, but it would show that it was flat. If there was any bumps either side, I would level the top with a cake leveller, which is what I'm going to use today. You can pick these up online in cake stores, loads of places, and I swear by them. I cannot cut a straight line with a knife to save my life. Well, that rhymed. So I like using cake levelers. So I would, if there was any need to, I would level the top, but as there isn't, I'm just going to flip it upside down and start filling it with lovely tasty ganache. Now, I know Tim could probably just eat that whole bowl.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I bake deeper cakes, I tend to split them twice. So there's 3 layers of cake and 2 layers of filling. Again, that's just how I like to do it. It also makes my cakes a little bit deeper. I do this if I'm covering them in icing. If I'm not covering them in icing, I always split twice. The only time I don't is if I am making, so I made like a multi-level cake. So it was like 3 levels of chocolate and 3 levels of vanilla for a friend of mine for a birthday cake. And I baked 1 1/2. So obviously the half didn't need to be split because it was its own layer. and the other one I split into two. I'm making this far too confusing. There is a blog on it. Go check out on my website. It's llama cake. It's the llama cake that I did, and you'll see what I mean. So ignore all of that. So we're going to split the cake twice. So I'm going to use a cake leveler, and what I do is you hold it against it, and you want to basically cordon off the lower third and then an upper third. Now this bit takes me ages, so if there are any questions, please do let me know, because I've got to...
Well, Julie and Kieran have both said thank you for the answers to their questions. Julie's saying that she's always been worried about doing it in one tin, so she's going to give it a go now.
Cool. Well, like I say, 9 years of doing it, and it's never gone wrong for me yet. So I wouldn't, anything that I recommend, I do get quite funny questions sometimes where people will say, but if you do it like that, doesn't it do this? And it's the short answer is, if it did that, I wouldn't do it, because why make life hard enough for myself? So with these cake levelers, there's little ridges up and down the sides, and I wasn't just talking to myself then, I was counting the ridges, so that way you know it's completely level. So I'm just going to have a look, and I think, right, I'm happy that is the bottom third of the cake, would you say, Tim?
Yeah, from where I can see, but then I'm not going to commit to anything in case I get it wrong.
And the way you use these is you do a sawing motion. If you just drag it through, you're going to damage the cake, and nobody wants that. So I hold it to the side, hand on the top, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, all the way through, and then before I reach the end, I bring my hand to the side and then do little sawing motions until it comes out, and then you can wipe away any excess. So they're really, really simple to use. I'm going to go up a little bit more, so bear with me. I think it's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to check. Nope, needs a little bit more, so maybe 7, 6, 7. You watch it be 6 now. 6, 7. Yeah, it was. Amazing. 1 down. 1 down. Perfect. So I'm happy that this is now halfway between the first cut I made and the top of the cake. So again, same thing. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then you get to the end, hand on the side.
Question from Deborah Gilbert. Yes. Can you recommend a good cake leveler?
This one. Where did I get this? I think I got this from Ice Gems. I'm sure I did. So yeah, this one. But they all pretty much look like this. They'll do the job. I find this one's a bit deeper than some of the others that I've used over the years. So there's that one. Right. So now my cake is split into. You've got lay there. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it just on a plate rather than, obviously I'm not going to be icing it, so it doesn't need to go on a board, it doesn't need to have all that fancy stuff, so I'm just going to put it on a plate. What I do have though, is a working board, which you can pick these up again on cake websites or online or anything like that. If you don't have one of these, you can use just a normal thin cake board, like the silver ones that you get. And what I'm going to use this for, is just to, if I tilt that up, pop that in, push the cake on, and then I can take my layer off. Simple as that. Because what I find is if you're trying to like peel the layers off by your hand, they can break. How do I know this? It has happened to me many, many times. So now I use a board. If I advise anything and say, because it might do this, chances are very high, it has done it to me. So I've learned from my mistakes, even if I don't. So they're on the side. So I've got mine here. Actually, I'm going to put it straight onto the cake. So this bottom one I can normally lift up. It's the middle one that's the pain. So we're going to put that on my cake, on my plate. Ready? Normally I would clean down before everything, but it's probably going to be the most boring thing watching me just wipe down my side. So forgive me the crumbs. So now I've got this. I've got my chocolatey ganache. So what I'm going to do, I should have got a tablespoon actually, but there we go. I'll just use this. So what I like to do is just put some in the middle. Like that. Probably want a bit more than that. How much you use, again, up to you. What you want to use, completely up to you. What you haven't just seen there is Tim just moved his head round from the camera to get a better look at it.
I've got comments in the way of my view of the chocolate cake. That's the problem. I need to get a nice clear view of it.
With it, I use a cranked palette knife, as you can see, just because I like the angle of it and I find it a little bit better for spreading. So we're going to spread this round. Like so. Now again, if I was doing this as an iced cake, I would secure it to a little board so it isn't going all over the place. But considering this is probably just going to be eaten by Tim, it doesn't matter. No, that's a little bit too much on there, so I'm just going to do that. Oh no, I've got chocolate on my hands. I often sometimes as well put filling into a piping bag and then put it on like that, because I also find that quite easy. But for this, I just thought, let's be rustic. Now I'm not going all the way to the edge, I'm going most of the way to the edge, because when I then put the layer on, it squishes it down. So I'd much rather it squish it to the edge rather than squish it over the edge. So I'm just going to pick up my board with my cakes and then gently pop it on like so. With chocolate on it.
Oh, people saying comments in the way. Is there some way they can... Okay, if I put you right at the very top of the screen...
If they swipe one way, I'm sure it has quiet mode.
Oh, it gets rid of the comments.
Yeah, so if you swipe...
I'll tell you what, I'll try and keep it more to the top as well. Because I know what I can see, but I can see that obviously because we're broadcasting it.
Honestly, he's a terrible cameraman. I do apologise.
Well, people have already mentioned they're pleased with the camera work.
If you think Tim's doing well, give Tim a little thumbs up, because Tim, if you don't follow me and you don't know, Tim's my husband and he's wonderful and I love him to pieces.
Oh.
And he's always putting up with this kind of stuff. So, thanks, babe. Right, so I've done the one layer, so I'm just doing again, put that in just to take it off nicely. Also, can you just have a shot of the cake for me? Because someone messaged me yesterday and said when they do chocolate cakes, they sometimes get streaks through it, and I wasn't sure what they meant. So this is what the inside of mine looks like. So I hope that helps, because they did ask to see the inside of it.
Everyone's just put the swiping works. So I'll go back to my normal framing of the shot then.
Oh, good. Then swipe back if you want to see any of the questions. I will do questions at the end as well. So if you've got a burning question but you haven't wanted to answer it because you've just been enjoying the show, that's fine. I will answer questions at the end. So a bit more chocolate. Again, nice and...
While you're doing that,
yeah.
Deborah Gilbert, does white ganache work as well as chocolate ganache?
Yes, I have a recipe for both on my blog. So again, if you can't find it because it's in my blog section, just Google She Who Bakes Ganache and you will find it. I think I've labelled it as easy ganache as well, because it really is. Right, again, most of the way to the edge. And then the top layer is normally quite a bit firmer, so I can just pick that up. Again, top and bottom layers, I've got chocolate over me. The top and bottom layers are normally alright, it's just the middle layer that you need to be a little bit careful of. So that's going on there. Now I always use, if you haven't noticed already, I use the bottom of the cake as the top. Why? Because it's perfectly flat. I know the other side was perfectly flat as well, not to toot my own cake horn, but the other side was perfectly flat as well. But this just has more flatness to the edges rather than any dome. Now I'm just going to put a very light covering. I say light. Covering of ganache on the top.
Yes, Julie, it does look delicious, doesn't it?
Really should have got a spoon. So.
It smells delicious as well. You can't smell it. Everyone.
Could you imagine if Facebook had smell vision? I think that'd be really good and really bad.
It would be, yeah.
I think some people, because it's the internet, would abuse it. And I think there'd be some terrible things. Now again, you can pipe onto this if you want it looking prettier. I quite fancied a nice rustic looking cake, and that's my excuse and I'm sticking with it. So, nice and round like so. And then to finish it off, I've got loads of sprinkles, because I think sprinkles make everything better. So we just put sprinkles on. How many sprinkles am I putting on, you ask? All of them.
Oh, that's an interesting question, Julie. How tall has that cake now become?
I've got a ruler, so I'll measure it in a minute for you. I'm mid-sprinkle, so can't think of anything else. Do you know what? I'm just going to...
Oh, I've had a question. Someone's asked me a question. Caroline Foster's asked me, what's my favourite flavour cake that Britt makes? Well, you probably heard when Britt mentioned about you can do this lemon flavour. I am partial to a lemon flavour, just because it just tastes a bit lighter. You know what I mean? It's like, it just feels like it's just a lighter flavour, and I can eat more of it as a result.
All right, so this is now 3.5 inches high. So that is how high this has become. If I'm then icing it, it then ends up at sort of around the 4 inches sort of mark. But again, if you want, and that's just the standard height cake. If you want a deeper cake, as I say, bake more cake mix in it or bake 2. That's what I do a lot. On my birthday cake this year, I made a Captain Marble cake because I'm obsessed with Captain Marble. And the middle tier, I said, I want to make it a deep cake. So I baked 2 of them. It was far too deep, but I really liked how it ended up looking, but it was heavy. Not only was it 2 cakes, both were split 3 times, and there was 3 layers of icing on it. There was a single base layer. Also, there was a crumb coat. There was a lot on that cake. It was really heavy.
It's lovely though.
But yes, so there we go.
You didn't get to eat any of it, did you?
No, do you know what? I didn't eat a single bit of my birthday cake, which I'm really upset by. But that's a different story for a different time. I'll have some of this instead. So there we go. There is a chocolate Madeira cake, covered with chocolate ganache and lovely sprinkles. And made with wonderful Homepride flour as well. Like I say, Homepride flour are a company that I absolutely love working with. I genuinely think they are the leaders of flour on the market. And when I first started baking, I never used premium flour. I just always used supermarket owned because I didn't think it made much of a difference. And then I swapped over and it really, really did. I've even done a comparison of Victoria Sponge on my blog. Again, if you search She Who Bakes Victoria Sponge review or something like that, it will come up and you will see the difference between standard flour and a premium flour like Homepride, and that's who I recommend personally. I think they're great guys and great guys and girls, and they're really, really fun to work with. And they have asked me to do this, which I'm really been excited to do. I've not done a Facebook Live bake along in quite a while. I used to do them a lot, but unfortunately time and my life and lots of different things have meant I haven't been able to. So it's been really lovely to share this experience with you. So that is a chocolate Madeira cake. I will post a picture of the one that's in the oven that we all baked together when it is ready on my personal Facebook page, which is She Who Bakes. So if you don't follow me, make sure to go follow me on that. So now, are there any other questions?
Well, you've answered most of them, but one that's just come in from Natasha Dawson. Is this bake along going to be on your webpage?
It won't be on my webpage, I went Australian then, but it will be on the Homepride Facebook page from, I believe, straight after this, because when you do Facebook Live, it gives you the option to post a page, which I will do. So it will be available to view on Homepride's Facebook page. There is, however, a Facebook bake along of me doing the vanilla Madeira, and that is on my Facebook page. So if you head over to She Who Bakes on Facebook, go to videos, scroll back, I think it was about a year ago, maybe a bit longer, and you'll find it. It says Facebook Live bake along, and you'll find the video there for the Madeira one. But the chocolate one was something I wanted to do especially for Homepride flour. Are there any other questions?
You've just got lots of people saying thank you and well done.
Thank you. It's genuinely quite nerve-wracking doing these because you never know, am I going to be talking to myself? Are people going to listen? So it is quite nerve-wracking, and I do get a little bit, nervous about things like this. So even though I've been doing them for years, it doesn't make it any less nerve-wracking. The same with baking shows, and to be honest, even just pressing publish on a recipe or a post is terrifying every time because you feel like you're putting yourself out there. So thank you to everyone for coming along and watching me today, and if you baked along with me, I would love to see the photos, so please pop them in the comments so I can see them. If you're watching this at a later time when we haven't gone live and you've got questions, again, put them in the comments and I will come and check them. So if there are no other questions right now, awesome, then thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for watching me today. Thank you so much to Homepride Flour for getting me on their channel to celebrate International Cake Day. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have too and you've got a lot from it. Come find me at shewhobakes.co.uk. Also, She Who Bakes on all of the social medias. Come find me, come say hello if you haven't already. And yeah, massive thank you to Homepride Flour and to Fred for having me. So have a lovely weekend, guys, and I'll see you soon.